Hi everyone, I am Welshie and welcome to Theory Pop. Today we're going to be thinking about a new theory, this one for Bendy and the Ink Machine. Now this is something I've kind of had in the back of my head for a little while and I've just not really focused on it that much, but the more I've thought about it now, the more interesting I find it. Is the studio actually alive? There's a couple of reasons that I think that the studio might actually be alive in itself. Nothing really happens inside the studio until Henry actually starts the ink machine. Now that's when we actually first see Bendy, we get the ink kind of flooding the halls, and we start to see the really kind of darker goings on. There's a couple of hints here and there with like some of the lights turning off here and there, the Bendy cutouts moving, but the really scary stuff actually starts to happen once the ink machine is active. Now, this kind of makes me think maybe is the ink machine kind of the heart of the studio? Essentially, that is the organ that's kind of pumping the ink around the studio. Now, when you're looking around, you can see the ink pipes through some of the ceilings and the walls, which are obviously acting as the veins if you're thinking of the ink machine as the heart. The ink is the blood pumping around the studio, and when that starts, it wakes up Bendy, and some of the other characters start to kind of become more active as well. And I'm specifically thinking in Chapter 3 with the Butcher Street gang. Now, yeah, that's a bit of a tenuous link maybe, but I'm thinking that Bendy and the Butcher Street gang are actually antibodies. Now, they act in a very similar way. They travel around the corridors of the studio and attack Henry on sight. Now, if you think of it in terms of a body's immune system, the white blood cells, which is the immune system, attacks the invading foreign body, which in this case is Henry. So is Henry essentially a virus infecting the studio? The studio is defending itself by sending Bendy and the other animated characters after him. Another thing to consider is kind of the layout of the studio. Now, we start off in Chapter 1, Moving Pictures, which is very much sight and visual oriented, as I've mentioned in a previous theory. That kind of is set within almost like the head. Now, it's a bit odd having the heart in the head, but that's kind of the link I'm making there. Now, as you move further down into the studio, you're essentially travelling down through the body. And as Henry gets deeper, he's physically moving down further into the body that is the studio. When you take the elevator in particular, I kind of thought of that as like the throat and down kind of the esophagus towards the stomach and further down into the body. It's kind of just a straight shot down. That is a bit tenuous, I know, but kind of that imagery, the continuous movement down from the top, down through the nervous system, through the body, I kind of get that feeling. Especially as you go into the basement level where the projectionist is, you see these kind of slimy tendrils. I don't know why I moved my hand here because I'm probably going to put an image there. You see these, almost these ligament or tendon type strings of ink hanging from the ceiling going down into the ink at the bottom. That, as I've said, feels very much like ligaments or tendons or maybe even arteries where the pipes are the veins. These are more like the arteries pumping the fresh blood, the fresh ink around the studio. Another thing to keep in mind is Henry has said he doesn't know when the studio got so big. He doesn't remember seeing the kind of the toy factory and these larger areas, the huge music studio. He's completely unaware of these. That means the studio has grown while he's been away. Now, I'm not talking about it's been expanded in terms of the company. I mean, obviously that is true as well. Thank you for that, Yuri. But the studio has physically grown. It's grown itself. Now, the evidence for that is, one, Henry says, wow, when did this place get so big? Now, you could take that as, yep, they've just kind of constructed and added on as they've gone. But he's continuously moving downwards. He's not moving out. I don't see in my head this kind of studio, this place of wonder where they obviously intended it to be this big place that people could come to, almost like a touristy thing, especially the toy shop section looks very much set up for visitors and kids to come. I don't see them expanding it down into basement levels. I would expect them to expand outwards. Now, obviously, depending on zoning and what's built around them, there could be those limitations there, but growing downwards into the earth like a system of roots further in, that feels more natural to me. Now, you might not necessarily agree with this, but I'm fairly confident that the studio is in some capacity alive in itself. Now, Bendy, maybe he isn't an antibody, but I do think the Butcher Street gang are. Bendy himself could be some kind of foreign invading body, but he's disguised with the ink, so he's not attacked by the studio's own antibody systems. He's more like a parasite that passes itself off, maybe. I know there's kind of quite a lot coming through in this video, and that's kind of the idea behind these more raw videos that I'm doing. They're unscripted, they're just the ideas that have come into my head that I kind of want to talk about and kind of process my thoughts on camera directly with you guys as well. And I'm really interested to hear what you think about it. Do you think the studio could be alive? Do you think Bendy or some of the other characters could be a part of this massive organism, acting as particular types of cells or immune system? Do you think Henry is an invading organism, like a virus? And is this why the studio is fighting so hard to stop him getting any further inside it? It doesn't want any it doesn't want any permanent damage done to it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really hope you enjoyed this. I'm hoping to do more of this style of video so I can get more out frequently, because I know it's been quite a while since I've done a full-on theory video, but hopefully if this style turns out to be quite popular, I may do more of these. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Theory Pop.